Today's episode is brought to you by C9.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I'm your host, Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, my man. One hell of a weekend of Overwatch League we just had, as you rubbed in the wound of one particular team's fan base. But yeah, that's fine, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So if you don't want to get shamed, just stay on the payload.
Just win, forehead. If you'd like to try bettering your score next round, try winning. But we'll certainly be talking about that match in particular in a bit. But man, we're rearing up to the end of the season here. We are moving into this coming up is the last week of the playoffs before the grand finals, right? Is that right? One more week of playoffs and then...
It's right to me in theory, and I remember specifically looking at this earlier.
Yes, because we're going to be the winner of winners bracket is going to the grand finals, and then the loser has to play the winner of losers, and the winner of losers goes to the grand finals as well.
Yes, and we predicted the rest of the bracket in the show notes already, which we'll be doing later in the episode. So this is the last week of playoffs here.
Yeah, playoffs. We got there. We finally got there, folks, and we'll be talking about that in just a sec. But before we get to that, we got a little bit of housekeeping. As we announced last week, the winners of both the Pick'em and Unlimited leagues have been crowned, and both winners have been sent their merch. So congrats again to Dust52 and Totemly Drunk. Neither of them, I can confirm, wanted Boston gear. So you can, in fact, Deathblow clap for them.
Yep, not dead to me. Congratulations.
We had, of course, for those of you who know Totem, wanted a Soul Dynasty hat. And
that's punishment in and of itself. So
right. I mean, that's just self mutilation there. And Dust got a Philadelphia Fusion jersey. So congrats again to them for that.
Questionable as well, but both perfectly acceptable.
Perfectly acceptable for sure. Nothing that we need to laugh at or point out or shun. We had the Pick'em, High Noon Pick'em winners as well here. Monkey Prince is the winner, followed by Greenman and hey man.
Oh, I didn't know you were going to be here. Oh, what do you know? Deathblow in third place. Season 3 Power Ranking contest championship was good enough to carry me to third place here in the overall season.
Yes.
I have a foolproof method that I'm excited to implore in future years to just crush souls. That's all I'm in it for. There was no prize to this. It was just everybody really enjoyed it last year, so we brought it back. And it was a lot of fun again this year. I know people particularly like my memes when I actually post my rankings as well. So there's a lot of ways to have fun with that. If you didn't participate this year, make sure you guys get in the Discord, discord.me/High Noon Podcast. You can be one of the many, many people that lost to me in this contest.
But you could also be one of the two that didn't. And it's just fun. It's just for fun, talk some smack, get some picks in, just flex how good you are at predicting. There. We do have Blackwatch Report. They, of course, had a new episode. I don't want to point any fingers, but their episode got released late, and it wasn't my fault, I swear. Don't shoot the messenger. Wasn't me. For once, something wasn't my fault. But their new episode is out, so make sure if you're looking for that, it is out in podcast land now, and they're going to be having a new episode tomorrow. And they're actually going to be announcing a giveaway on the show tomorrow. Their Gauntlet bracket prediction episode is going to be tomorrow, which is Tuesday, November 10th. For those of you listening in podcast land. So make sure you go over to twitch.tv/blackwatchreport to watch it live if you'd like, or just make sure that you are subscribed to their various podcast feeds as well. All right. With the housekeeping out of the way, let's talk a little bit about what we did last week. Deathblow, anything fun and exciting for you?
Yeah, it's my favorite time of the year, Blevins. It's football season.
It's
The NFL is back.
wonderful time of the year.
It's early in the year. We're only 1 week in. Everybody's spirits are up, except for Thornrain and the entire city of Cleveland. But the Bills are undefeated. They're Super Bowl bound. They will end the season holding the Lombardi Trophy. And anybody that tells any differently, Blevins, you know what they are? They're
Not
a hater.
From Buffalo. Oh, okay.
They're a hater, and we don't tolerate such.
Nope.
So yeah, don't at me. My Bills are undefeated, and it was definitely a blowout victory that was very confidence inspiring. And I don't want to hear anything else about it. So yeah, no. In all seriousness, though, I mean, it's fantasy football time. It's football time. It's Overwatch League playoffs. I'm a kid in a candy store. It doesn't matter where I turn, where I look. I'm just inundated by some form of competition that's being televised that I really, really want to watch. So much to the point, I literally forgot about Overwatch League playoffs on Sunday. Like, I woke up, it was football. I turned it on. There was 2 matches left to go in the second match, or 2 maps to go in the second match. And I'm like, oh, it didn't even enter my. That's how excited I get about football. That with how invested I am in Overwatch League, it literally didn't occur to me on that day because it was my Christmas morning. So yeah, it was a great weekend overall, and I'm already a little bit sad that it's not. There's less football in front of me than there was this time last week. But you need week 1 to start, right? You just want like 3 weeks in between weeks. So that way it stretches out a little longer. The football season's too short, man. It's too short.
Yeah, but that makes it even more precious when you have it. So it's a catch-22. But yeah, I was so excited for football season to start that I completely forgot that it even was opening week for them, and didn't get DraftKings set up or anything. I just didn't even realize that it was starting this week. I figured it was too early, but I'm just not. It's just. I don't know.
You're missing out. I'll hit you up as soon as I lose a bet on DraftKings, okay?
Yeah.
It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, that is true.
As soon as I start sending you lineups, though, they're doomed. As soon as you've got money on them,
right? You can send the lineups, but once I'm
going to send you decoy lineups. Is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be like, here, you should bet these players. I don't use one of them in my lineup. It's like you should use these.
Wow, I was going to put Eddie George in this lineup anyway. Wow. Man, this Marshall Faulk, Kurt Warner, this is a guaranteed winner. Just taking advantage of the fact that I only know players from the 2001 to 2003 era. But for me, I was actually casting TFT tournament. TFT grind is real. That is super fun for me, but just been busy with stuff. I am playoffs are where I really hone in my love and focus for Overwatch. There's just so much during the rest of the year. It's hard to be as into it as you are at the end. And I mean, we'll talk about the match specifically, but I was talking in the pre-show. I have not been this excited for a single match of Overwatch. And I don't actually remember the last time. It's been probably last season, but it is. I'm very excited. But let's move on here and let's move into news. Got a couple of pieces. Actually, got a pretty decent amount of news this week. Mineral, a former High Noon podcast hot seat. Not contestant, but guest is now been named the head coach of the Boston Uprising. And Deathball, I know you have a message for him.
Yeah, listen, personally for me, and from all of us here at the High Noon podcast and Productions family, I didn't ask. Okay, you're in on it. You can't take it away. From all of us here, the High Noon Productions family, including our sister shows, who I did not consult even a little bit when crafting this message, I just wanted to wish you exactly the same amount of luck that you had in your time in Florida. In all seriousness, though, Mineral, a great guy, a phenomenal interview when we got a chance to talk to him. It was honestly so long ago, Blevins. I don't even think it was a hot seat episode. I think it was just one of our first
just a regular
interviews.
episode. You might be right about that.
And I think it is.
I was gonna say
to this day our number one most downloaded episode that we've ever put out. at least as far as the podcast feed goes.
Mm-hmm.
I know YouTube numbers for a couple of things have gotten a little crazy in the past that I think beat that out. But as far as just sheer number of times clicking on the download button, so that was great for us. Obviously, anytime whatever your most distributed episode is, it's going to have a special place in your heart. I feel exactly what I feel every time somebody signs with Boston that I like, and it's the Samwise Gamgee gif. It's "Don't go where I can't follow." I can't. You're dead to me. I'm sorry. I can't help it. But nonetheless, great to see him back in the league. And if he played anywhere else, I would wish him the absolute best and hope it worked out for him.
Yeah, unlike here, where you hope it works out for him, but you just hope that his team.
I hope his talent as a coach is apparent, while the owners and operators of his team sell all the talent around him and make it impossible for him to succeed.
So you basically want him to be the next Krusty, is what you're saying.
Sure, except for they won with Krusty, and
That's true. Yeah, but then they got rid of him, and they didn't end up winning. So we hope that happens for Mineral as well, that he does well for a stint, gets shipped somewhere else, and then they take immediately.
If you have that team in a playoff position after 3 stages, I need you to immediately leave. Don't ask questions. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Just run away.
Yes. And go to Runaway, actually.
I don't know where
coach of Runaway. But another coach signing here. We have U4 has been signed as an assistant coach for Hangzhou Spark. Not a lot of intel on here, but always good to see more coaching staff being brought around the league, especially a team that we haven't really, obviously, with the exception of the Crystal kind of debacle, we haven't seen a lot of different moves from them. If I recall correctly. So good to see them adding to the coaching staff. Good to see the second wave teams, the season 2 teams, still adding coaching staff and looking to improve as well. So good on that. The next 2 are, I guess they're, in our eyes, they're kind of fluff pieces here. But we did have our Rookie of the Year and our MVP announcement here. For Rookie of the Year, we've got Hangzhou. Death, what do you think about this Vancouver Titan getting the Rookie of the Year award?
I'm pretty fine with it. It probably had to be somebody from Vancouver when you really think about it, and just looking at who's newly acquired and brought in, and the top teams don't really have kind of fresh influxes of talent outside of the expansion teams that are still alive and kicking in the playoff race. So as far as this award's concerned, we can nitpick and we can discuss other people that were just as worthy of it as Hangzhou, but I don't think there's any reason to begrudge this one too much. He was a standout player on the best team, record wise, leaving the regular season. That's where you look for these kind of awards. So this one to me makes a whole lot of sense. But it's an award that'll be more meaningful with time as time goes on, when there's not 8 expansion teams, when the league's more established. We've talked about this a lot, and we're always going to be very questioning and doubtful of expansion teams and elevated players from contenders or from tier 2 or really anywhere that's not Overwatch League already, where you've seen them in this environment and on this stage. And that's just a problem that was always going to be less prevalent earlier on, because the talent pool that we have to pick from between all the regions, and there's still so many players out there that are Overwatch League caliber and could step in and perform very well. The problem is they need to perform that way in trials and things like that, and it needs to work for them in other ways. And so this award, as far as Rookie of the Year goes, it's a kind of a fluff award now. I think it'll become much more meaningful down the road, but the selection here is I think good, if not but it's somewhere between great and perfectly fine. And I just don't have any issues with it. But it to me isn't a race that I'm like worried about. I'm worried about MVP. I'm worried about the Internet Hulk Award and how little that means, or however little meaning there is behind it, are things that get me more excited to talk about than the Rookie of the Year, which is again to me 3 years away from being, or 1 or 2 more seasons away from being a really meaningful thing. Basically, it'll mean a lot more when every team is a repeat. Maybe next year we get a really interesting Rookie of the Year race. Because there aren't going to be expansion teams. So it'll be players that came into existing situations and really turned them around.
Right.
Hacksaw joined with the team that he won a championship with before joining Overwatch League. It was projected to do very, very well, and the team did very, very well. And that's not a knock on Hacksaw. It's just like boring.
It's just like scuffed MVP essentially is what
right.
It feels
but
like.
it just doesn't make it wrong. It just means that the award needs a little time, I think, to really. They didn't award one last year because it would just have been even.
Jonak would have gotten the Rookie of the Year and the MVP.
Right. It would have been an even more ridiculous exercise.
Right.
Last year, and it was right to do it this year. We want to get people used to it and seeing it, and caring about it, and but it's not there. It'll be a better award, I think, in a year or two.
Yeah, I mean, right now we don't really have much distinction between a rookie and a veteran right now. Like there's 1 year of difference, right? In terms of Overwatch League, it's like, and like some of these like contenders players may have been playing even longer technically than Overwatch League players potentially. And we've talked about this before. It's like everyone has the same starting point at best, right? And no one is so like the game came out not that long ago, so it's not like we have 10-year veterans. And like you said, having the Rookie of the Year award is really kind of compelling because it's a rookie, someone who wasn't in the league last year, coming into a team where they, potentially took a starter position from someone who was in the league last year, and they made an impact. And right now it's like, yeah, okay, that's not what happened with the expansion teams, just like you said. So, next year, if we see, it could have been like even if someone like Flower came in for NYXL and actually had an impact, like imagine a world where, or even Nene technically could have been would have been a candidate that, if maybe he would have performed a little bit better, would have made more sense as a candidate. I mean, he still, I think, is arguably a candidate here, but
I think he was one of the only Zaryas that was on a similar tier level to Sinatra, who won the MVP. And I think had he maintained his playtime through this playoff run, I would have considered him a very serious candidate. And honestly, he was probably very much so considered as a serious candidate by the committee or whoever made the selection, just because the timing of it tells me that the selection was done already. This didn't just happen now. They've had this information for a week or two. That was before New York started playing. So all things considered, Nene would have been another good candidate. And that's the kind of candidate that I think we'll see in the future, obviously, because next year there won't be expansions. So.
Exactly. So I think even as early as next year, Rookie of the Year is going to be something that we'll be talking about. And I mean, they kind of like offhandedly talked about it, probably because they didn't have, as far as I know, don't have it's not T-Mobile Rookie of the Year, so they don't have a sponsor, so they probably don't talk about it as much as they do the MVP race. But I don't really remember them talking about the Rookie of the Year race really heating up, which they do in traditional sports, right? But I think we'll probably start seeing that storyline next year a little bit more if we see some breakout rookies. Otherwise, it's just kind of it hasn't matured yet. But
it probably, like you said, it probably won't, or like you alluded to, I should say, it probably won't until there's multiple candidates that are really stand out, and then you get people on team, team Crusher 99 versus versus whoever. That's when it'll get really exciting. But deserving of Hacksaw to say the least, and congratulations to him.
Sure. And last piece of news here, we did get our MVP, which we can save our criticism for the MVP, as we already talked about that. But it's Sinatra. Okay, clap.
Of the candidates, I have no issues here. To me, we talked about our opinion of the candidate pool and who else we would have put there. And to me, those candidates are still better selections. As far as the candidates chosen, I was pretty much in a just not super camp, because Sinatra, in all honesty, was very, very vital, and he, unlike Super, came out lot less. And now he's back again, right? It was more about like a specific hero that they needed to cover when he came out.
Right.
And his Zarya really was a big part of the reason why this team was so good throughout the GOATS meta. So as far as the candidates that were possible to choose from, I thought he was a solid selection. I probably would have gone Twilight. And I still think he was probably the third best San Francisco Shock player to receive the award, but the two more deserving ones weren't in the nominee pool, so that's unfortunate. But congratulations to Sinatraa. He far from did anything to not deserve this himself. He was a standout player and a solid performer and a fan favorite. And like it or not, that matters, even though the fan vote conversation is another one we can have for another time. Sinatraa, it's part of the equation, and he killed that part of it and did very, very well. So kudos to him. His brand is clearly doing just fine.
Yeah, it's well, we'll talk about the MVP race next year when it comes up, and maybe it'll be a little bit better than this year. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much. Although it kind of does, because if Sinatraa gets his own skin, like I want good skins here. I want a good skin for Sinatraa, but
yeah, like they did the Spitfire themed skin. Like, are you gonna have a Golden Gate Bridge themed Doomfist skin? I don't know.
No, they did. No, the Jonak skin was the.
Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah, but yeah, that does create its own interesting championship skin question, I guess, down the line.
No, we're gonna see an Empire State Building theme skin.
Just like a series of X's all over somebody's face. I don't know what would it be for New York.
I don't care.
They're probably the
I'm
hardest
be
one
happy.
to theme.
I don't care, but I'm going to be happy when it happens.
Shock, you could just charge them with electricity and you know what I mean, stuff like that.
Yeah, there's so many cool things you could do with the Shock, but unfortunately for them, it's just not going to happen. I read the script already. Let's move on here. I wrote the script.
It's tournament talk.
We have got a big week of matches here. Starting off on Thursday, we had the Vancouver Titans take down the Seoul Dynasty 4-2. Los Angeles Gladiators came out and defeated the Hangzhou Spark 4-3. So Vancouver and Gladiators moved on to the winners bracket. On Friday, we had... Oh man, I didn't want to talk about this, man. I'm so nervous. So, man, NYXL, it's the playoffs, right? They're gonna choke. Oh, NYXL won the easiest match of their life, 4-1 over the London Spitfire and the Atlanta Reign. And credit where credit's due, you predicted the upset. Atlanta Reign wins 4-3 over the San Francisco Shock, and we'll talk specifically about that match in a bit because it was a doozy. On Saturday, we saw the Hangzhou Spark win 4-1 over the Seoul Dynasty, and that was the first elimination out of the playoffs, and why, Seoul Dynasty is now out of the playoffs. San Francisco Shock wins 4-0 versus the London Spitfire. So Seoul and London now officially removed from the playoff contention. So
take that.
Yep, we will not be seeing a repeat champion this year for the Overwatch League Grand Finals. And then on Sunday, we saw the Vancouver Titans beat the Los Angeles Gladiators 4-2, bumping the LA Gladiators down to the losers bracket. NYXL, oh man, they lost to Atlanta twice, and they're gonna choke in the playoffs. I'm so scared. Oh, they win 4-2 versus the Atlanta Reign. Weird. I didn't hear a lot of people talking about choking or sandbagging in the playoffs. It was weird. My inbox was pretty quiet this weekend, Death.
Taking quite a bow because your team learned how to chew and swallow. That was something the rest of us learned when we were 2 years old. It took the boys.
Took them 2 years. It took them a year. It took them 2 years.
Longer than that, my friend. There's history before Overwatch League.
Nope.
The criticism, the worry was all very valid. It had been about too many times, I think, for it not to be factored in and counted, but you're also correct to take your bow as a fan of the team when they seem to have put it behind them. Last year we talked about, and we've talked about it again, and we were much more negative this year about the sandbagging in stage 4. The reason for that was because it blew up in your face last year. So why would you repeat it when you could just show up and play Overwatch and not put yourself in that situation? And we talked last year about the failure of the team seemed to be on the planning, on the coaching staff, on the plan. And that just doesn't, it's not a problem with this team right now. They seem like they absolutely have a plan. They're executing it. They're getting good play from their entire roster, top to bottom. I think the meta does play into their passive, defensive, reactionary play style very well, which is also a very big help. It might be the most New York friendly meta that we've seen this season, but at the end of the day, it's just things have to get right. They got right for the Spitfire last year. Are they right for the New York Excelsior? We're a couple matches away from knowing for sure, but at least it looks good.
One
early.
match potentially.
Well, then they gotta.
Getting to grand finals is my goal right now. I'll worry about grand finals once we're there.
If you want to close that door before you even get there, fine. But a real fan would. I'm just kidding.
No, I'm going to evaluate after. I'm worried about this next match. I don't care about anything after that until we get there.
That's why it's an easy 5-0, easiest 5-0 of your life, I'm sure, when we get
second
to it.
Easiest. No, the London Spitfire 5-0 is the actual easiest one.
Yeah, no, New York is playing really, really well at the moment. So congratulations to them, and their fans. Would have been very painful for those fans to go through that again. It's something you've seen in traditional sports a lot. Teams that just underperform when they get there. A lot of them tend to make a habit of it, and the only way to get over it is to kind of clean house a little bit. Like, maybe not the whole roster would have needed to be shaken up, but the leadership certainly would have needed to have been shaken up. That's the only way you get a different result when something repeats over and over. So I think a strong run here, like you said, getting to the grand finals is the primary concern. That to me is, I think, the level of success this team had, being the number 2 seed this year, being the number 1 seed by a country mile last year, you have to at least get there. You can't not even show up. So to do that 2 years in a row would have signaled some possible change coming in New York, and now they really aren't going to be forced into that. I think we'll see some adjustment of their reserve players. But again, we can cross that bridge when we get to it, because right now, they got some things to focus on in front of them. And yeah, looking back, the win against London, can we talk about London for a second? What are they doing over there? They were the ones that came into this playoff lost and seemingly without a plan. And we did get a little bit of a peek behind the curtain in the form of a tweet that was soon deleted. It was like the social media manager or something like that for London very briefly had a tweet out that was like, can you imagine getting knocked out of the Overwatch League playoffs because of a kid's bad attitude or something along those lines? Reading between those lines a little bit tells me, who didn't we see at all, Blevins? It was Birdring. Birdring didn't play. They got a pretty drastic underperformance out of Guard, who really we'd only ever seen come in when Somber was needed. And so now he comes in, and really he only had some good looks on the Bastion, but overall the Spitfire, who I think should have, granted, I don't know who their best Doomfist player would be, but I don't look at London and think, man, this is a team that's got DPS hero pool problems. It's a team that should just be able to do anything, because Prophet is on their roster and is just capable of playing absolutely anything at any time. But I guess you do at that point need to have some amount of flexibility, some capability to be able to move into another DPS option, right? So Birdring, it was probably never going to be the ideal DPS duo for Prophet. You were always going to need to have that reservist that can play something other than the Widowmaker. It's been a while since we've seen anything other than Widowmaker excel from Birdring, but to be honest, when you have Prophet, you should only need adequacy from your DPS too. You shouldn't need standout. Prophet will handle the standout play, but I didn't see anybody capable of picking up the Doomfist on this team. And it turned out that, a team that looked like on paper, because we just assumed Prophet had everything covered, just ended up having a big gaping weakness and a very fatal flaw here. So disappointing outcome for the defending champions, but made a whole lot of sense. We'd already seen them once. It wasn't great by any stretch. They were in the play-ins though, right? They did pretty decently.
They looked
there.
pretty good in the play-ins actually, but
yeah,
I mean, it takes one.
But that's
bad
a
week.
far cry, right? It's a
Right.
far cry from having to play against the 11th and the 12th seeded teams,
Right.
to playing against New York when everything's on the line. So I guess play-ins. I've always been of the opinion they go a little too far down the list of standings to find people that might be able to participate, and maybe we need to be mindful of this as a trap in the future, that somebody's going to look good coming out of play-ins because they got the style on some lower ranked teams that are in the bottom half of the standings, and then maybe they're not actually any good. But yeah, they've got a whole lot of time to sit and think about what went wrong for them now.
Yeah, they looked decent in the play-ins, and it only takes, everyone's got a plan until you get smashed in the face, right? Or punched in the face. I think that's a Mike Tyson quote or something like that, right?
Punched in the mouth.
Punched in the mouth. There you go. And they got punched in the mouth by New York Excelsior. And unfortunately for them, I think, okay, maybe NYXL sandbagging. Maybe, I don't even know if they beat them in the regular season. I can't recall. But, maybe we've got a chance here. Maybe we can put up a good match. Didn't happen. And then they have to, their recovery game is against San Francisco. That's not a spot you want to be.
That's the hellish outcome I foresaw for New York, right? Because I predicted that, and I'm like, man, I want to say New York's going to go on this deep run because I like the way they're positioned right now. It's only the mental that I'm worried about with that team. But I had Atlanta getting the upset, which means somebody in the losers bracket was going to go against a top 2 or 3 team in this league. With a vengeance, with just desperation, with you know what I mean. And if SF hit that losers bracket, you knew they were going to be mad about it. You knew they were going to be playing very well, and you knew it was going to be an absolute bloodbath for whoever they went against. And I was worried that was going to be New York coming off an emotional. If New York had lost last week, it would have been panic time. It would have been the second loss to me would have just been cemented. Their mental would have been shattered. It would have been over. And to go against a team that was in the exact opposite boat of as motivated, as desperate, as whatever, and as well coached as that team was, desperation can be a bad thing in sports, because it can also be the X factor, the difference. And that usually comes depending on which outcome you get or which impact it has to me. Coaching. If the team is well coached, they're going to react to it well. They're going to use it as motivation. They're going to keep their heads on straight. And if they're poorly coached or sloppily coached, it's going to go off the rails. It doesn't have to be about coaching, but in my experience, that's the best predictor of it.
It's at some point it's about coaching, because if it's not about coaching, it is about coaching, right? Because like the players, we all know they have the talent to do it, right? So if a player is like, they can't, they don't rise to the occasion, if they crumble in adversity, like, some of that, the front end of that is the player, right? But it's the coach and not even just specifically the coach, but the support staff of the team whose job it is to help these players, rise to the occasion,
to get the best out of them. Absolutely. That's their entire job description, is to get the best out of the players that are put in front of you to coach. So even if it wasn't their fault, it was their fault for not realizing it was a problem and getting it under control. And, so that's fair for sure.
Absolutely. But you mentioned San Francisco getting pushed into the losers bracket, and we had a doozy. I was thinking about this. This might have been the best match. I think this was probably the best match of Overwatch we saw this season. It might even be a top 5 all time.
I think it's probably top 2 all time. The only one I can think of is one that you've completely blocked out of your entire world, and that was
Envy versus Rogue in the.
No. I honestly, anything pre-Overwatch League can't, to me, really compete. With what these games are, at least as far as the top 1 or 2, because we have this one, which was phenomenal. Right. And we also had Philly beating New York in the playoffs last year. That was a 5-mapper that Blevins has no memory. Yeah, it didn't even happen, right? But yeah, that one was obviously another all-timer. But I said it as soon as this one happened. Instant classic. I went straight to Discord because I knew you were casting that tournament. I'm like, off Twitter, watch nothing except for this. Like, you don't consume media until you've seen this match.
And the payoff was worth it.
Right. And saying that almost spoils the score, but that's fine because this one was way more than the score. And Blevins, you said that San Francisco got pushed into the losers bracket, and I don't think that's what happened at all.
That's true.
I think they stood up and walked to the losers bracket.
Yeah, they didn't. They didn't stay in. They didn't walk on to the winners bracket.
They were on the payload and said, "You know what's better than being on the payload? Being in the losers bracket. Let's leave this thing." An absolutely savage C9 in this match. If you haven't seen it, my apologies, but it's on you for consuming this episode before you saw the match.
Thinking that you weren't going to get spoilers on the show where we talk about the matches.
But even now that you know it happened, go back and watch it because it's still worth it. And watch more than it. Watch the after show where they go over it. And if you don't see the look on Moss' face when it happens, you don't know what it's like to just feel for another human. Like if you didn't, I mean, I laughed. Don't get me wrong.
But I was dying laughing.
I also felt so bad for Moss. Not even the rest of the team. I'm sorry. I don't.
Yeah.
This dude, Thornrain said it best in Twitch chat here. He looked like he watched a puppy get killed.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was
just a look of just.
You saw the lights leave his eyes. He was dead inside for 15 seconds after that happened, and I don't think he knew where he was. The whole team just looked lost. Yep. They didn't realize the match was over, and they needed to stand up to accept the handshakes of the other team because all they could do was just sit there and look at their computer screens and look at each other and say, how could this possibly happen? And when you break it down, Sideshow on the post show did a great job breaking down exactly what happened. It's the smallest of communication error causes something like that, to be perfectly honest with you, because they had a Sigma player and he was on the other side of the cart. Right, he was on like a flank, throwing rocks and orbs at people and doing a fine job. But somebody died on the point, and then there was like a cooldown they were trying to avoid, and they just stepped off it for the smallest of seconds, and it was just. There's never been a higher impact, higher stakes, just insane punt than that in Overwatch, and that's the only way to describe what it was. Listen, when you're playing the game at the highest level in a comp game, it wouldn't even. I mean, the chat, in chat, you just get a lot of C9s and Z9s and whatever, and jokes, but it wouldn't be a thing. But at the highest
they're
level,
going to be remembering this for years, I guarantee.
Oh my God, this will be the C9.
Yeah.
Right. If it's not, I don't
second
know.
only to the actual first C9 from C9.
Honestly, that one takes a backseat to this one.
True.
And if it wasn't for the fact that renaming it will never work, if Shang 9 didn't catch on, nothing's ever replaced C9. Yeah. So we're not going to try, but it would be Shock 9. But yeah, I mean, it's just insane how high impact and in the moment when we talk about sports magic. And man, if you're an Atlanta Reign fan, it was in full force for you in that moment.
We saw Dogman just completely pop off immediately.
Oh, just go nuts. Yeah, it was a great moment for that team, for their fans, everything. Man, just highlight of the weekend maybe for him, but it was a hell of a highlight. And I know I play games from Omnic Lab, was at a watch party when it happened, and he was like, we almost tore the building down. Like, he goes, we were so loud.
I'm jealous
everything
of that.
was going on. It would have been an absolutely incredible just environment to be in, surrounded by all those fans rooting for just they're probably responsible for it. Just the collective will of the entire Atlanta Reign fan base pushed the San Francisco Shock players off the point in that instant. Yeah, just got the job done. There's no sugarcoating it. I mean, it was just absolutely devastating for San Francisco Shock and their fan base, and it was just the peak of excitement and hype and playoff glory and madness for the underdog Atlanta Reign.
So good. Who,
I mean, really anybody with half a brain picked them to win that game because it was just obvious it was going to happen. It was just it's the only way to it.
Yeah, I mean, the whole game it was just not even close, right?
It was the most lopsided 4-3. No, in all seriousness, it was. I pick a lot of these games and stuff by when I see like how many people are picking one side or the other, and I think like that's not right. This team deserves to like they've got a much better chance, I think, than people are giving it credit for. So I'll pick the upset, and that's not really what I did here. Like I did, and we talked about it in the pre-show. So Blevins, you can back me or not in the pre-show, but like in DMs or whatever earlier in the day. I really just thought Atlanta with their momentum.
Yep.
It was San Francisco seems like a team that just they're like on top, but do they really in their hearts believe they're supposed to be there? You know what I mean? They might be trying to figure it out still. They're not New York, who's been around for a while, and now that their playoff problems appear to be behind them, they're terrifying. But they just, I don't know. San Francisco was hyped up a little bit too much. I don't think it was no more than stage 2 that they were the best team by a long shot in this league.
Right.
They're up there, right? Like New York, Vancouver, San Francisco have been a solid 1, 2, 3 that are super, super close to each other for a long time now. But San Francisco got held up as this unbeatable juggernaut. And I truthfully never saw it as that. Yeah. I saw it as a great team that was very difficult to beat, but people were talking about this one like it was a lock, and I didn't see it. But yeah, it was crazy. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm just rambling now.
No, it's all good. The one last thing I want to say is that the payoff for having no spoilers whatsoever. So I didn't know the score. So like the whole time I'm like, well, it's gonna be a 4-3. Okay, I get it. And like in my heart, or I guess maybe not my heart, in my mind, I'm like, you saying not to watch it and being excited for me watching it is like, oh, okay. Well, it's gonna be a 4-3 and Atlanta's gonna win, which is true. But I'm like, I'll watch it. I'm watching it back and forth. It's like, oh, they go up, and then I'm like, oh, this is where Atlanta wins it. Then Shock wins Kings Row, and then they win another one, I think, and then or maybe I don't remember. But and then watching that last push on Rialto. Okay, I'm blanking on the. I'm picturing it in my mind where this is happening, but on Rialto, I'm watching it and I'm like, I actually don't know who's going to win this now. And maybe you told me to watch this just because it's so close, and you don't actually care who wins. You just wanted me to watch this very close game.
We're completely uninvested in either of these.
Yeah, I don't care who wins one way or the other. And you don't, I mean, you kind of want Atlanta to win just because you predicted it, but like,
I only dislike a couple teams, and neither of them are these two teams aren't them.
Right. So I'm watching it and I'm like, I don't know who's going to win. I'm watching this and it's like super heated up, and it's Uber, and I believe it was Uber and Mr. X casting, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting pumped up by Uber. I'm like, I don't know who's gonna win this, and then it's just like, oh no! It's just like my jaw dropped to the floor. I'm like, I can't believe this. And then like 3 seconds later, I just start laughing uncontrollably and just looking at the chat, spamming C9. Oh man, it was so good. It was just you have to watch it, even though we've just completely detailed what happened.
Yeah, you know the score. We've given you the play-by-play. I'm going to give you more detail, and I think it's only going to make you want to watch it more. This one went like a tennis match where each team was just holding serve, right? Atlanta Reign win the first map, so San Francisco picks the second one. They 3-0 on Rialto. Then Atlanta picks the next map. We go to Horizon Lunar Colony. Atlanta wins there. It alternated. The team that picked the map won the map the entire way, including at the end. There was just a first map, which was assigned and not picked, I believe.
Yep.
But even in that Rialto map, even in map 7, right, you have the San Francisco attacking first, and it is I just told you, every map back and forth, one team wins, the other team wins. The San Francisco attack on that map was a microcosm of the entire match. Watch it. I'm pretty sure I'm 100% correct on this. No team won 2 team fights in a row. None of them throughout the entire thing. It alternated the entire way. Moth is a boop god and gets all those boops to start things out. San Francisco wins, and Atlanta wins the next fight, pushes the payload halfway through the point. San Francisco holds them. Atlanta takes it back. It was just literally every single fight was every other one. The result flipped. It was back and forth. I mean, you had there was even was this? No, it wasn't a surprise. Yeah, it was a surprise. This was the first match that Atlanta played. Was that correct? So
yeah,
this is when we found out Gator was playing for this team. So we should take a minute and discuss that. Atlanta Reign, with, in my opinion, the most common sense solution to this meta problem. They're the only ones that got there. If you want me to play 2 main tank heroes, funny thing about my bench is I've got a main tank player sitting there waiting for it. So they bring Gator in, fresh off his undefeated contender season, right, to come in. And risky because he hadn't been on the stage, but do we
paid off?
I mean, FRD's been hyped, but is he a world beater? Can you just afford to not take him off the stage? We've already dispelled that myth about Daco because FRD came in and was able to do as good as he did with this team, and they were able to perform as well with the switch. So I think it was really, really smart. I mean, really risky, but really, really smart of the Atlanta Reign to bring Gator in. He looks like one of the better Sigma players. We don't know. We haven't gotten to see him a ton, but he's always been talked about. And I kind of laughed every time I heard it. That's why I remember it as like a really high mechanical skill main tank player. I'm like, oh, great. Well, his 45-degree arc of Winston aim is just always spot on. Like, right. Like I use, it doesn't mean it's not true, but it's just a funny thing for like, it's like bragging about how good you write with your offhand. It's like, that's just right with your dominant hand. So it was always kind of, I laughed at that, but now it's bearing fruit and it's paying off, and Atlanta looks like a strong team. We've got another match of theirs to talk about soon. It takes a bit of a turn. Spoiler alerts, but actually we already talked about it, right?
Yeah, we've already discussed it, but this match, I mean, this match deserved the time. Like, you need to watch this. If you haven't watched it, you can fall into that, like, well, I know the scoreline, you don't need to watch it. This is one you have to watch. This is a history books game. This is the C9. It is
instant classic. Yeah,
you need to watch it. And
we talked a lot about it last season when the stage playoffs were happening. Is this the greatest match in Overwatch history and all these things? And we haven't talked about it this year. This one's in the conversation. To me, it's number 2. I hopefully how long it's been since we've said that and sent you to watch a match only lends validity to it and gets you guys to go watch it if you did miss it and are catching up. You can't tell the story of season 2 of Overwatch League without this match. So if you followed it all this season, you've got to see it.
Yep, and you're going to be seeing clips of it from now until forever. But let's move on here and let's break it. We've got our playoff bracket updated. So as we talked about, I don't need to look at the playoff bracket. You guys can look up a playoff bracket for yourself, but we're going to talk about the matches here. Starting off on Thursday, we've got Atlanta Reign versus the Hangzhou Spark. Deathblow. We're going to be following your Bizarro world again, which was a little bit off, but I think if you combined our Bizarro worlds, we got it right. Mostly because we disagreed on almost everything. But
I was going to say I'm taking the win last week just because I got the upset.
Sure.
That pushes it. But
hold on though. To the surprise of everyone, New York Excelsior's up 2-0 versus the London Spitfire. Come on, Hex. Come on, man. Come on. Seriously.
I forgot about the
I heard that and I was mad. I was mad when I heard that.
Yeah.
It
did feel. We'll take a second on it, and there's nothing that the casters can do. And Blevins is just giving our buddy a hard time. They have to feed storylines, and they have to downright make them up sometimes to just feign compelling whatever. But you don't need to feign it in the playoffs. So I'm with Blevins on this one.
Yeah,
this was the number 1 seed in the Atlantic Division.
Right.
If it was to the surprise of everyone that they won, you're all stupid.
Yeah, which I
didn't predict them to win. I predicted them to lose. I was not surprised that they won, even a little bit. This is historically the best team that the Overwatch League has seen in its young career. I say that knowing, I get it, Vancouver fans. I get it. You were the number 1 seed.
Oh, but Runaway never lost a game in Contenders.
But you're here for the first year, and this team has maintained excellence in elite play throughout. Been no faltering except for in stage 4s when they're sandbagging, and that I believe is, and I want to get on record too, I'm not taking that back. Just because they didn't lose here doesn't mean they didn't sandbag in stage 4. They absolutely did. It just didn't jump up and bite them this time.
Right.
So I know people want to do a victory lap and say, well, see, they weren't sandbagging, blah, 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 blah. No, they were, guys. They were. They stopped. They were able to stop. They were able to turn it around this time. But yeah, nobody should have been surprised. You might have predicted something else, but at this point, there's no surprise outcomes. There's only 6 teams left. The best 6 teams are what's in this playoff right now. There's no surprises.
Yep.
Every team here can easily win this thing. And if you don't believe that, you haven't been watching this season because there's been so much parity. Atlanta beat New York twice. San Francisco drops stinkers all the time, seemingly, right? Like, you don't lose to Houston randomly in stage 3. You don't, if you're an unbeatable team and it's ludicrous to think you might lose, then you don't have those, even one of them in your list or in your schedule, in your past. So yeah, everybody here is very deserving of being here. It's crazy. Like, the top 2 seeds in the play-ins are who advanced. Those are the first 2 teams to leave. And be eliminated. It is following standings order right now. That's not normal, as we saw last year with the 6th versus 4th or something like that seeds in the grand finals. It doesn't always happen that way, but it is right now. And at the moment, at least, it looks like we're just dealing with the best teams, like the season form. If you doubted the season format, if you doubted the playoffs, I submit Exhibit A to you that it works and that it gives you the best. And that in the times it doesn't, that's why I concede to those being the correct results, right? Just because I'm surprised doesn't mean I was right to begin with. It doesn't mean New York wasn't the best team last year. I'm sorry, Blevins. They just weren't. They didn't win it. Right. And that's, I know, and it shout outs to Icarium, who's basically exclusively who I'm speaking to. But I he's not alone. There's others, and there's European fans and viewers who I think listen to us that identify with his viewpoint on it of, it's, well, why does it matter? Why does this tournament matter more than the rest of everything else? It doesn't. It feeds it. The season feeds the playoffs. The playoffs determine who the best are. And this is how it works out more often than not, that the best teams advance.
Right.
It feels like that the whole way through. There's been one upset so far. The double elimination bracket, to me, should seal it for anybody that doubts it, right? Because San Francisco didn't get eliminated. They still might be the best team in the league, and we're seeing that, right? They crushed in the winners bracket. They could very well make it all the way. I think New York versus San Fran. Honestly, San Fran versus New York versus Vancouver versus anybody left, I think would be a phenomenal final. So I almost hope they get there. But it's just, I don't know, bit of a tangent, but we wouldn't be us if we didn't go on one.
True.
But it's the playoff format. They're just killing it this year. Like, it's just been so much fun to watch.
It has been a ton of fun. Yeah. Double elimination. I mean, we won't get into tournament bracket.
Did you pick Atlanta and then I was supposed to pick and went off on that tangent? Is that what happened?
I didn't pick anybody. I don't remember why I went off on the tangent. I just needed to make sure that I called out Hex because.
Oh, that's right. It was your Hex call out, and that's what started. So now we're moving in, and we're picking
Atlanta versus Hangzhou. Yes.
Okay. All right. So in this game, I'm going to go with Atlanta here. Hangzhou is a solid team. Clearly earned their spot here. They were out there doing God's work this weekend, punishing the Seoul Dynasty for their terrible decision making throughout the year. If there's any outcome that I think maybe the highest skill team, the highest ceiling skill team didn't make it, it's probably that one, because Seoul could have been better than they were. I really still to this day believe they shot themselves in the foot. But yeah, I'm going to give Atlanta the win here. Hangzhou is looking solid, but I think they're very beatable. I think there's things you can do to get underneath them. I think Atlanta, they cooled off, and they could really come out here and lay an egg. It's very, very possible that there have been this whole season a very streaky, emotional team. We saw 2 win stages, right? But this loss this past weekend here against, who was it again?
New York.
The first loss since the Atlanta homestand.
True.
They've not lost a single match since that time. So I'm going to say New York's a good team. It's not a problem to lose to a team like them, except for that you might need to play them again very, very soon.
But the flame does not burn as brightly, regardless of
It doesn't.
Yep.
So there's a clear window where Hangzhou can take this one, but I think Atlanta has got this figured out a little. I really think the Gator addition, the level of play from their tank line is going to carry them, and I think they're just a better all-around team right now than Hangzhou in this meta. They're one of the ones that really seem dialed in and seem to have it figured out. I don't care if you lost to New York. You beat San Francisco 2 matches ago. You should be able to take Hangzhou. So give me Atlanta here 3-1 or 4-1. Because that's how the playoffs work.
That is how playoffs work. Yeah, we're going to be following your bizarro world here, but I actually am in agreement here. I'm picking Atlanta. A lot of the same reasons. I just not feeling Hangzhou. But again, I'm not going to be surprised if Hangzhou wins against Atlanta. It's really, I think the first map or two are going to be huge for Atlanta. If you're an Atlanta fan, you want Atlanta to come out strong. If we see a match like they had against San Francisco again, a back and forth, I'm honestly maybe even more in the Hangzhou court here. But if Atlanta wins, they're going to win big here, and they could certainly be motivated to come out hot, and they could crush. So I'm going to go with Atlanta as well. Next match, we have the Los Angeles Gladiators versus the San Francisco Shock.
Yeah, Gladiators, I think, look really, really strong in this meta so far from what we've seen of them. Their first match was really weird, to be perfectly honest. They won it, but they did it. Map 1, Hydration, can you play Doomfist? Map 2, Hydration, can you play Orisa? Map 3, can you play Doomfist? Like, they just kept switching. We joked about musical chairs with Soul. This was literally musical chairs with their lineup. Like, they were just like, hey, you go over there, and you sit here, and you come in. Void, come out, go out, get out of here. Just constant switching. I was terrified for them when I saw them do it. I'm like, okay, it worked. Great. I talked about the possibility of Hydration being one of their main tank players, and I wouldn't have blinked an eye if that had just come to fruition and just been what they did. But the switching wasn't going to work to me. It was not a long-term solution. And I think we saw that by virtue of there was a very short amount of time between the end of the playoffs or the end of the regular season and the start of the playoffs. I don't think they knew yet what their best composition was. I think they were still figuring it out. They were fairly confident in both of them. Obviously, they did it. They switched every map like that, and it worked for them. But I'm glad they finally stuck it out, left Hydration on DPS. You can get away with Doomfist and Pharah, I think, 100% of the time in this meta. He's top 3 at both of those heroes, in my opinion. It's been a while since we've seen much of his Pharah, but this weekend should have been a reminder to you how good he is, that particular hero. I think he was hands down the best season 1. That includes being better than Fleta and Shadowburn, who people also tend to forget were ridiculous Pharahs in the inaugural season of the league here. So, yeah, I think they're in a very good situation, just with the exact wrong opponent, right? That invulnerability shield is gone from San Francisco. They're playing with the desperation that Atlanta needed to beat them. The Gladiators, look, I think this is the best we've seen them ever, including with Fissure, including any other time. It's great that they stayed in the winter. They beat Hangzhou. They get to the Vancouver match. They fall flat there a little bit, but it was competitive in that match as well. So a 4-2 loss there. They alternated the first couple of maps and then lost the last 2 at the end. I had to watch that one on VOD. It was because that was smack dab in the middle of football. But it was really, really close, and I think this one is going to go really, really close. And I'm actually going to call it a 4-3, but I think I have to lean slightly in favor of San Francisco here. They're a higher tier team just by a little bit. I mean, it's close. They're all very, very good, but the Gladiators are going to need to prove it. If they want me to consider picking them anymore in these playoffs, they obviously have to win here, because otherwise they're going home. But that's like the prove it moment, right? Like, we can talk about how good they are, and beating Hangzhou is great, but I think Hangzhou squarely the 6th best team alive in the bracket still. So yeah, they have to be able to put this one away and show they can beat a better opponent in a crucial, pivotal moment.
Right, because if they're not going to beat a better opponent, then they're just not going to win these playoffs, right? They're not situated at that number one seed. So
if that's not something they're capable of doing, they might as well have lost already.
Right. And I mean, obviously they can play spoiler, and they in their minds think that they've got a chance. But this is a big one, because if Gladiators can win here, like, I think all bets are off. Really, I mean, a lot of bets are off anyway. But they win against San Francisco, all of a sudden, they already lost to Vancouver, so they can. On the one hand, yes, Vancouver knows how to beat them, but on the other hand, they've got tape. They know what they did wrong. They know what they need to improve. So, like, they are put in the position where they can change what they're doing, and Vancouver isn't necessarily going to change because, why fix it if it ain't broken, sort of thing. So, if Gladiators win this, I, have to kind of take a step back and reevaluate the rest of the playoffs here. But as it stands, I'm not predicting that outcome. I am going to agree with you here with San Francisco. Again, tier differences here. We have on the show, unless we have a really strong gut feeling, or if it's a flip for pick'ems, we don't usually pick a team to just randomly win, unless it's me picking something stupid or very, very smart. Hashtag I'll still pick Florida to win next season. We don't do it. Like, show us you can beat San Francisco before we start giving you anything, Gladiators. So give me San Francisco here. I think they are going to take it. Moving on to Friday, we've got, in my mind, this is the match that we were promised from the beginning of the season. This is the one we wanted to watch, not the last game of Stage 4. We knew NY was not going to bring it in Stage 4. It ended up being a great match versus Vancouver, but Vancouver Titans versus NYXL in the winner's bracket. The winner of this is booking their trip to the Overwatch League Grand Finals in Philly. The winner of this is going to Philly, and we are going to be seeing them live for Grand Finals. So, I mean, my pick goes without saying here. I'm picking NYXL. Not even close.
Has there ever been a sport or anything? I mean, considering our tickets bought, our room is paid for, we're finalizing traveling plans.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to the Super Bowl, Blevins.
Yeah.
This is the championship game. Your favorite team can earn their spot. Have you ever wanted in sports a win to happen more than you want this right now?
The only time I can think of it even being close, and it's really hard to compare your mindset as a sixth grader versus your mindset now. The only time I've ever cared about a team as much as I care about this match right now is like the Boston Red Sox in like 2001. I remember staying up way too late to watch the like Yankees Red Sox series in like 2001. And I remember going to sleep with Boston ahead and being like, I'm so happy because Boston's going to move on and they're going to win the ALCS. And then I wake up and New York made like a miraculous comeback. Like after I went to sleep, I was so devastated, and there's a little bit more history behind Boston making the World Series at that point than the New York Excelsior and Overwatch League making it, but for me, at least in recent history, it's not close. And again, it's really hard to compare your mindset when you're literally 11 years old versus 29. But no, I want this match right here. I want this to happen more than any other Overwatch League match by a country mile. This is the most excited I've been for an Overwatch match. Just an Overwatch match, period. And I don't remember when. I can't think of a match I've been more excited and more invested in the outcome for than this one. It's not even just like against Philly last year. Obviously, winner goes to grand finals, but like this is we have to fight for it. This isn't this isn't the like we're on top and we can squander it. This is we have to fight for our lives to get to the grand finals, and I think this is where NYXL can really thrive here. So no, I have not been this invested in a team making the grand finals, especially when we have our tickets punched and ready to go. I'm more excited about this match than I think most things I've been excited for in quite some time.
Win or lose.
Nope, no lose.
Okay. You'll never ever hear the end of it. Good news for you, Blevins. the Vancouver Titans have made what I think is, it hasn't bit them yet. Okay. But I don't, the Tizzy move bugs me. They brought him in and the timing of it. And I think even leading into it, I may have said something along the lines of like, I can't rule out that we're going to see Tizzy in this because the time bothering to bring him out at all to LA, worrying about getting the visa approved and getting him there, it was a bit of a slight signal to me, but I still didn't believe it under any circumstances that we'd be seeing this man, because they played all season with Bumper as their main tank. They played an Orissa-based stage with Bumper as their main tank. They get here to the playoffs where everything matters, and we're just going to switch.
Yep.
Now, I can't sit here and tell you I think it's a bad move, because I can honestly look at their lineup with Bumper in it and tell you in an Orissa meta, I believe he is by far their biggest weakness and their biggest concern, their biggest issue. How does he hold up in such a weird meta where he can't charge to kill people? And you know what I mean? Like, we'd just only seen him play the Reinhardt at such a high level of play that it felt like he was just an unquestioned asset. And even then, a lot of people don't like his play style. It's super aggressive, super risky. But now we're here, Tizzy's playing, and he looks pretty solid so far. There is some history here. It's not like they brought in some schmuck off the street. You know, Tizzy played for Runaway before he joined the London Spitfire going into season 1. So he's played with a good portion of this roster in the past, if not the entire roster in the past, because I think he was the only one that didn't go by the, if you want one of us, you have to take us all into Overwatch League or we're not going stance that this team had. So being able to go back and call on previous synergy, but man, you lose a good portion of it. And it doesn't just work, right? And I get why, you know, it makes it safer, but not safe. And so far, like I said, it hasn't bit them. They're still playing really well. They look very strong. Tizzy doesn't look like a weakness by any stretch. The tank line as a whole doesn't. So, but I do worry that it affects their ability to compete at the absolute best that they possibly can. If they were worried about somebody other than Bumper, that player should have been in the locker room long before they needed him.
Right.
He should have been incorporated into the team communications. He should have. Thankfully, this is a player who spent time in Overwatch League and saw a little bit of playtime, right? Did he see playtime with London? I don't know. Anyways, regardless, he was there. He knew what to expect. It was, you know, it was not a crazy experience for him. So that obviously helps a lot. But just the team synergy, the plans, the getting used to the coaching staff, the structure. He'd never worked with Harsha. There's no way that happened, right? Like, so you need to be able to have some rapport and some synergy with your coaching staff as well as the other players. So I know, I saw in Discord, I think some people really brushed off the change as, oh, well, he was with them before, it's fine. And I don't think that's true. I think, and it's not even a blame game for them, because if it works, it's brilliant. That's the thing about all these things we criticize people for, all these risky, why would you do that? You know, we say that all the time, anytime someone makes a mistake. And we're right. But it's also, when it works, it's brilliant. And we're going to give them credit for that too. It's just not really worked out for a lot of people in that way yet. Nobody's made the Hail Mary, move and had it pay off and get them to the end goal. When it does, that'll be the smartest coaching decision in the history of Overwatch League. I'm telling you right now, it's going to happen. Harsha will be brilliant if Tizzy takes them all the way and they win this championship, right? And he's the playoffs or the grand finals MVP. But we're not there yet. And right now it's still risky to me and it's questionable. And I don't know what to make of it yet. And that all brings me back to, I don't have those questions about New York, right? I don't believe they made any goofy DPS substitutions. I didn't didn't the Flower played the first map, the first match of the playoffs or something. And then I don't think we've seen him again. And I don't think he played that great. No, he did come back in for a second map. I don't know. This was the one match last weekend where they were also, real deep in football in the Atlanta game. And I saw it, but I only saw the end of it, and I don't know exactly how it all played out. So it's the one I still need to catch the VOD for. I'll probably be watching it tonight. But assuming you can get the DPS play figured out, assuming those goofy substitutions have stopped, and I'll try to look into them a bit here and see if I can find them. Then I really think New York should be in a very good way. Let's see, Busan was Flower. That's and then it's SBB Libero on Numbani. Then we go to Temple of Anubis, SBB Libero. We go to Watchpoint Gibraltar, Flowers back in, and that's the map they lose. I don't like this Flower substitution because that's what happened the last time. They win one map with Flower, and it's the control map, I believe, both times. And then they just don't seem to play as well or as good as a group when he's in there. And I don't think he should be coming in. I don't think he's a standout player anymore. I don't think he's been since the World Cup. I didn't think he really should have been signed, but we kind of got the inside scoop from Bare Hands when he was with the team. Like, no. He's basically here. There's no circumstance where they don't.
Right.
Those aren't his words. That's how I interpreted his words. There was no world in which Flower didn't end up on this team. He was going to be signed no matter what happened. His time on XL2 was very marketing based and like, that sort of a thing. And, right. Just they needed to keep him in the organization and keep paying him so that he didn't go sign a contract somewhere else. They wanted control over his contract because they thought so much of him. And we just haven't seen it in a really, really long time. I would love it to turn around and to be the case. I don't think this is the meta for that. I think SBB and Libero is absolutely the way to go. I think the team looks better with it. That to me is the window here for London. But again, for Vancouver. Sorry, I'm looking at the London versus and I've got Tizzy's page open on Liquipedia and he's wearing a London jersey. So there's a lot of reasons why I got that one wrong. But so listen, it's a battle. Those are the two question marks. And listen, Flower's been there, right? It's less jarring to me to make that change, even though I do think maybe the impact is higher. But it's a pocket strategy on a couple maps. And it's not, I don't think they've lost the King of the Hill with them. So you can argue it's not an issue there at all. But yeah, I'm going to go New York here 4-3. It's super, super close. Yeah. But I just think they're in a slightly better spot. But yeah, this is in a way the grand finals. We've been looking at this for a long time. These two teams wanting to know the outcome, and the last week of stage 4 turned out to be the worst time to tell us who the best team was. Right. And now we're here and everything matters. So I'm super pumped, and I'm sure you're taking Vancouver to win.
I'm not. Actually not the easiest 5-0. This is not going to be a 5-0. I want it to be. I'll take the free ride to the grand finals. I don't care, but this is going to be a slobber knocker, as they say. And NYXL's really going to have to fight for this one, and I think that this could be one of the most hyped games we've ever seen, even coming off of that match last week. This just has. I mean, I guess neither of these teams are facing elimination, so I guess it has a little bit less impact, kind of, but also the winner goes right to grand finals. It goes to the grand finals. So I'm picking NYXL to win, but it's gonna be a tough one. Moving on to Saturday, in your Bizarro World Deathblow, we've got Atlanta Reign versus San Francisco Shock. So the rematch of arguably one of the best matches of Overwatch we've ever seen. Who do you got?
Sorry, Atlanta, I don't have it working out for you quite the way you're hoping for. I do think SF is going to get the salty run back, as we'll have to call it if it happens. They are, and I thought it when I picked Atlanta the first time, the better team, San Francisco, that is. They're going to want this more. I'm sorry. They have a stain on their name that they need to erase. The C9's a cute, funny story if they win the league. It's tragedy. It's heartbreak. True. It's defining of their organization at the moment, if that's not the case. Right. They're desperate. They're hungry. They're every cliche, whatever sports thing that coaches throw out there. They're all of that. And the shine's off the apple a little bit on Atlanta. Yeah. They're not in a bad situation. They're not in a panic situation. They're going to be coming off of a win versus Hangzhou in my bracket. That's how they get here. So they're not going to be in. I'm not calling for panic. I'm calling for another phenomenal match of Overwatch. Yep. that is super, super close and comes down to map 7 or the final map, maybe map 8, who knows, draws are a thing. And I just think San Francisco comes out the other side of it this time. You don't get that C9 twice. Guess what? Those players are never doing that again. If it happens, then it is Shock 9 forever, and we need to rename it, and I'll have that campaign again. They'll have taken the title. But that's a scarring. If you haven't seen the look on Moss' face, that says everything you need to know about where the Lucio on that team is going to be when you get to the end of a payload map, even a checkpoint that Moth is glued to that payload for the rest of his life. He'll be tweeting from it like he's a Vast or something in no time.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this one's tough. I mean, it's super close. I want to pick Atlanta because I want, Dogman obviously has that high noon bump. I want to see Dogman get there just because he's such a vibrant
I'm with you in wanting Atlanta to win for sure.
Yeah. I don't think I could pick it if I'm making a bet. I'm picking San Francisco here. I agree with a lot of the points you ran. San Francisco, Atlanta does want they're going to want it. I don't think that that Atlanta is necessarily going to want it less, but San Francisco just I don't know. They're both going to want it a lot. It's really tough. I mean, I want to see Atlanta, but I'm picking San Francisco. They're just a slightly better team. I don't know. It's super, super close. I'm not going to keep going back and forth.
Don't add us, though, Atlanta fans. We're with you. We're standing right next to you rooting for your team in this one. I have no love for San Francisco. I'm not a big Atlanta guy, but you guys are fun. You're hype. You're exciting. I'd rather that than, we're just really good. That's boring, San Francisco. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I want the hype. 2 weeks that you beat NY, where you were dead to
which
me,
was
the
great.
worst team ever.
You were great. I loved you. You were at your peak in my book at that moment. But I'm siding with Pogman here with my heart. I think San Francisco.
Yep. Let's move on here to Sunday. So we've got in your Bizarro bracket, we have the winner of Atlanta versus San Francisco, which in your case is San Francisco, versus the loser of Vancouver versus NY, which in your bracket is Vancouver. So we have San Francisco versus Vancouver. Who do you have, Death?
Spoiler alert, our Bizarro worlds are exactly the same until this point anyways. So yeah, going into this one, this is, I believe, for the second spot in the grand finals, right? This is
correct.
Just winning in. Okay. Go to face maybe New York. But yeah, in our world, that is Vancouver versus San Francisco. San Francisco's so good. And you know what they didn't do? Sign a new main tank off the street and bring him in right before the playoffs. Again, this is another one. Man, I almost hate having to predict these games because I don't feel confident in any way, shape, or form about my last 2 picks here. It's just a gut feel. San Francisco has so many things going for it, and Krusty is a big, big part of why I think they're so well prepared. They've got a little bit of that fire and that edge that you see out of Atlanta, but it's so much more contained. And I think when you can contain it and rein it in, but the attitude is still there, you get the benefit and you don't have as much of the downsides to it. So I really think San Francisco's in a really, really strong spot. I've got them going to the finals here. Again, this is 6.5 to 1, half a dozen to the other. Yeah. This is crazy, crazy close. I'll go San Francisco 4-2 because I picked a lot of 4-3s, and that feels like I'm cheating. So I'll say they get
3-0.
Yeah, they get the somewhat maybe decisive win, but man, this one is. We should flip a coin even if we agree, just because we're going to agree that it's basically a coin flip anyways.
Yeah, I'm taking the other side of the coin here. I got Vancouver. I do think, in the same way that San Francisco had their, oh crap, we need to win here. We're going to be gone if we lose here. Vancouver has really never been in a situation like this. They've gotten some losses during the regular season. They've gotten losses in stage playoffs, so this is not the case. This will be their first loss. And we saw San Francisco come off their first loss and really just raffle stomp their next match 4-0. I think Vancouver's going to come and do I don't think they're going to 4-0 shock because that is a super hard feat to do, but I do think that they're going to win here. I've got Vancouver versus New York in the run back in the grand finals.
All right, that means we need to flip a coin to see who the official podcast pick will be for the second grand finals member. I've got a coin, and we don't care about these teams, so we don't got to worry about whether or not it's a weighted rigged coin or not.
True.
I'll let you pick who's tails.
It's San Francisco.
Tails for San Francisco. Coins in the air. It's flipped, and it is tails.
Ooh. So we will be seeing New York Excelsior versus the San Francisco Shock in the grand finals, according to the High Noon Podcast Bizarro bracket.
That's chalk. Put it in. Can't change.
Can't change.
Despite all the indecision that I talked about 30 seconds ago. It's it. Lock it up. It's written in ink. It's happening.
That's it. And guys, that's it for the playoffs. Playoffs are done, and then we're going to grand finals, baby. That's where we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about the grand finals specifically next week. But that's it. A nice playoffs, really exciting playoffs. This week is looking to be the most exciting so far. But Def, any last minute words before we get going here?
Yeah, I want to ask our fans, hey, are you guys going to the grand finals in Philadelphia? Are you going to be joining us in the stands, screaming your face off with us, licking the tears off the Blevins' face live when New York loses, right in front of his face? That's what we want to know, if you guys are going to be there with us. And the way to tell us so that we can make sure we get a chance to meet you guys, that you get a chance to stop by and say hello and meet us wherever we decide to hang up and do our little informal meetup or whatever we're doing this time around. It's not going to be as formal as last time. We had a venue and signs and kept the place open and stuff like that. This is just going to be, we're going to park it at a bar and tweet it out and let you guys know where we'll be. You can hopefully come hang out with us and drink a couple brews. Tell us in the grand finals text chat on Discord. It is there. Grand-finals. You'll find it. It's in the general channels section. Last one before the voice channels. Find it. Let us know. We'll post in there wherever we're going to be. We'll also probably tweet it out as well. Need you guys to show up and hang out with us, because a lot of our podcaster friends that we usually hang out with at these events, not going to grand finals.
Scum
indeed.
Losers.
Scum confirmed.
Losers.
We're looking at you, Bob.
Yeah. But you guys can be losers with us. Make sure that you go to discord.me/High Noon Podcast, and you can find us everywhere on the internet, High Noon Podcast, all the places, patreon.com/High Noon Podcast. If you want to support us, you can also support us this month for September at twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast. Subs are half off. But guys, that is going to be it for today for Death Blow for the Overwatch League playoffs. I am the Blevins, and remember, it's High Noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. Threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
All right, Blevins isn't here to do the thing at the end of the song. I don't know. He ran away. Probably had to pee really bad. Now, Kyle Wynn of Blackwatch Report didn't listen through to the end of last episode and put a 3 in the general chat of Discord. So everybody in the Discord, just at Kyle Wynn, offer no explanation, tell him nothing, just at him. And when he asks what and ats you back and mentions you back, no response, explain nothing. He'll never figure it out.